Get on the train before it leaves the station. The truth train is coming, gonna run them down, run them down.
Alrighty, hello there folks, how you doing? Okay, so we're back with another segment, highlights from MaM-a-Thon, and this is going to be my chat with Dr. Silkman. Some of you may know Dr. Silkman. He's been around the community here the last couple of years. He's been pretty active, and you guys can find him over at Foul Play over on YouTube, or you can find the Foul Play server, Discord server, and you also can chat with the community over there at Foul Play. So that's where Dr. Silkman kind of tends to hang out usually, and they make a lot of content over there that's really good. So this is my chat with Dr. Silkman, really about Brendan, focusing basically all of our energy there on Brendan, talking about all the fishy things and messed up things with Brendan that stand out and are obvious. So here is my chat with Dr. Silkman. I hope you guys enjoy. Hello, Dr. Silkman.
Certainly. I did.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, Doctor. How are you?
Hey, good.
Oh, I love it.
Good to be here.
We needed an Aussie in the first segment, so here we go. Remind me of talking to my good buddy the Hod. Anyway, the Hod will be on with Mr. Capaldi, I believe, by the way, folks. So I'll be looking forward to that.
Awesome.
So, all right. So I brought Dr. Silkman in, folks, for the final leg of my first. There she went. If I'd known she was going to leave, I'd have said goodbye. Okay, goodbye, Sydney.
Yes.
So I obviously brought you in, to just talk about Brendan, and I figured, I don't know, maybe Steve Moore might have given you a few things that might have spurred something for you to talk about if you want. So I'll, obviously we're all trying to create as much attention for Brendan right now as we can. We're trying to, put it in Governor Evers' face, even, just the population in general there in that area of Wisconsin, so that Brendan's innocence is something that just can't be ignored, obviously. No. So, yeah. So that's one of the reasons why I brought Dr. Silkman in. So was there anything in particular that Steve Moore said that you found particularly interesting?
Oh, well, it's amazing that you got him in as an FBI guy. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing what he went through. And really, at the end of the day, first of all, Eric Cozy, look, thank you so much for inviting me on.
Oh, absolutely.
That's awesome. And all kudos to you and your team and everyone working on this, because the more exposure we get, the better. And it's amazing that I've really only been in this case for about a year. And it's fantastic that you invited me on. And just listening to the story of Sydney, very, very heartfelt. And it really puts a reality to the whole thing about, true crime. Often, we watch documentaries on TV, but we don't have a connection. Mm-hmm. Then when someone comes on and tells the tragic story of what happened to a loved one in the family, it really brings it home. So yeah, that was amazing. Look, just listening to the FBI gentleman, at the end of the day, when you think about it, it's just pure common sense. There was nothing magical, nothing mind-blowing. It's just pure common sense. Mm-hmm. And I remember about a year ago when I watched Making a Murderer, MaM-1, and I saw the story of Stephen and Brendan. Brendan really affected me. Yeah, it just tore at my heartstrings. And I remember doing a presentation for Rubber Ducky over a year ago. Mm-hmm. And I was literally crying during my presentation.
Right.
That's how much it really affected me because, I've got kids of my own, and all of us have to think, jeepers, what happens if our own loved ones are placed in a situation like that? And it's very, very terrifying. So I looked at the case, the Brendan Dassey, Stephen Avery case, in a holistic manner. And I was particularly interested, and I still am a lot, at what happened with Brendan. I was completely shocked. It became so obvious that that poor kid really had no knowledge of what was going on.
Right.
And all the major points, I mean, we know the story, all the major points, all the major factors were being spoon-fed to him. And somehow he entrapped himself in the bear trap. And it was very sad. So what I did, Erikosi, I decided to track Brendan, as in I went to the original literature, I read as much as I possibly could, I looked at as many videos, I came on your YouTube channel, I saw as much material as possible and try to put it all together. And really, when you look at it, Brendan's downfall started from day one. When he was interrogated or interviewed by a Detective O'Neill. And yeah, that's right. And like, if you look at this case, everything, and I mean everything that could go wrong for this poor boy did, from all aspects, from all angles. And I must tell you, Erikosi, when I first started doing this case, I used to have a crop of hair. I've pulled it all out now. And it's like, yeah, I'm from Foul Play, of course, and the guy's got me my beautiful T-shirt here.
There you go.
And we've had many discussions like you guys have. And Brendan is a special case because I'm from Australia, and when I saw MaM-1, I thought, nah, surely this has got to be a joke, right? And as Steve Moore was saying, look, surely these two guys, Fassbender and Uyghur, being adults, they surely should have known that Brendan had no idea what was going on. But clearly they didn't, or maybe they didn't want to. Like I said, I think Brendan is the ultimate proof of planting of evidence. It really is, because I know this is really about Brendan, but what it actually proved was that the state, the investigators, were not expecting Brendan, right? They weren't expecting Brendan to come along. It was basically to set up Stephen, make it as airtight as possible with the planting of evidence, and then all of a sudden, you've got Brendan that comes onto the scene. And like, what the hell? And you can see the way Brendan was handled in terms of the way Kratz, Fallon, Gunn, the way they treated the cases. You would think that, okay, we have one victim here. We've got two potential suspects. We do one trial. We question them together. We put them in the same trial.
Right.
But you could see from the outset what Kratz's plan was, and it was ingenious.
Yeah.
Ken Kratz, he basically compartmentalized Brendan.
Yeah.
It was brilliant the way he did it. So we all know, like, he's got two different murder scenarios, one for Brendan and one for Stephen.
Right.
And you sort of wonder, well, guys, which one actually is it?
Right.
And so, like I said, things started off badly with Brendan, and they really finished off badly with Brendan. And like I said, Erikosi, I tracked Brendan by going through all the testimonies, and you could see right from day one when he was questioned by Detective O'Neill, it all went downhill. Because if you notice, every time Brendan was initially questioned, he told the truth.
Yes.
He actually told the truth.
The one consistent story that he tells. Yes, absolutely.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. You think he's a 16-year-old kid, right? And his uncle is caught up in this horrendous. He's been charged with murder right? And remember, Brendan liked Stephen a real lot. The two hung around a lot, and they helped each other in the garage fixing cars, etc., etc.
Right.
But Brendan already, you could tell he had a suspicion of the police. And it's funny because when he was questioned by Detective O'Neill, one of the things he said, oh, well, we think the cops did it, right? And so this 16-year-old kid is telling Detective O'Neill, I think there was Baldwin as well, well, we think everything was planted by the police. And of course, they're not going to like listening to this. But what was remarkable was, I did a presentation on this. Brendan actually changed his story 3 times when he spoke with Detective O'Neill. And that raised a red flag in Detective O'Neill. And so he initially asked him, look, what happened? What happened when you got off the bus? Well, he said that me and my brother Blaine, we walked down the gravel road, we went home, I went on my game console, my brother did other things, and that was it. It was a plain, boring story, right? And he said that, later on, my uncle rang me up and he said, look, come over. I've got a few things I want to get done. And I believe that there was a fire. They collected a few things. They had a fire going on, etc., etc. However, unbeknown to Brendan, was that there was an officer, I think it was a DCI officer by the name of Skalinsky, right? I think he tapped on the glass of the car and got Detective O'Neill out.
Oh, okay,
and
right.
He said, yeah. And he basically said, do you realize that a bus driver saw a photographer taking pictures when she dropped the boys off? And it's amazing because when O'Neill came back into the car, his tone and manner completely changed.
Yeah.
So a red flag went up in O'Neill and thought, Brendan is hiding something. And so...
And we now know that statement about her being able to see Teresa is complete BS. So
correct.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Correct. But you see, Eric Cozy, what had happened though is that Brendan now changed his story because he's going, well, wait a minute, if the bus driver's the photographer taking pictures, then, and
She
remember
must have been
Detective
there.
O'Neill, Detective O'Neill said all 16 of the other passengers saw the photographer. Of course, he was fabricating. Then surely you saw the photographer as well. And unfortunately with Brendan, he goes, oh, yeah, that's right. We just stood aside and she drove out, right? So all of a sudden, from going to, I didn't see a photographer, to, oh, yeah, she just drove past us.
Right.
And then O'Neill questioned him again, said, oh, come on, Brendan, surely you must have seen such and such.
Because he didn't want to leave the salvage yard, right?
No, that's right. Exactly right. And then all of a sudden what had happened was Brendan goes, oh, yeah. When I got down to the end of the gravel road, I saw my uncle. He was talking to Teresa. Teresa was taking pictures and no problems at all. But the amazing thing was he said that he saw Teresa from his kitchen window, right? And of course, who told the story of seeing Teresa from the kitchen window? His brother, Bobby. Right? So now you can see what's happening. All of a sudden, Brendan has heard these things from his brother and probably from his uncle, and he's now mashing a story together, right? Now, what's so nefarious about seeing your uncle, seeing the photographer? The reason why it's nefarious is because now they're now trying to tie in Brendan. So Detective O'Neill was going, and he even said it in court, Brendan was hiding something. He knew more than what was going on. And of course, we know what happened, right?
Yes.
The infamous party that he went to with his cousin Kayla. And
Right.
Kayla noted that, he was a little bit down, he was a bit depressed, and he was crying. Oh my God. Well, the investigators, of course, had to go down. They interviewed Kayla, and it just progressively got worse and worse. And that's when they went back. Mark Wiggett said, well, we had to talk to Brendan again. And so their way of thinking was that Brendan was actually hiding something, rather than Brendan was actually making up a story that had no validity to it.
Right.
And, like I said, I tracked what had happened to him. And the unbelievable thing was that Strang, when they were questioning the bus driver, Lisa, she couldn't remember the day, the week, or the month in which she saw the photographer, right? And it's like Ken Kratz knew this, because Ken Kratz knew when Teresa Horbach actually came to the salvage yard and took all the photographs. So he knew that what the Avery family did was that they put the cars that they wanted for sale at the front. That's exactly where the bus driver saw the photographer, at the front, not where Brendan lived.
Not over
And
by
so,
Stephen's trailer, right?
yeah. So
Right.
from a misconception, look what happened to Brendan, right? From a misconception, it all went really bad for him. And I remember when I saw the interview, or his interrogation, the March 1st interrogation, it was just absolutely mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing.
Did everyone on the bus? Okay, so Debbie Salmon asked, I wonder if Brendan asked his brother if he saw Teresa because everyone on the bus saw her. Hadn't heard about.
Well, you see, this goes to show the dishonesty of the law enforcement.
Right.
They, of course, you think about it, right? Both him and his brother Blaine got off the bus.
Yeah.
And they walked down, right? So Skolinski, believe it or not, the day before, they questioned Blaine, and Barb was present. His mother was present, was at a hotel. And Skolinski, apparently with another investigator, was screaming at Blaine, because what they were trying to do is to put Blaine against Stephen, right? Because they're saying, look, Stephen did this, Stephen did that. And Blaine said, I saw nobody. I got off the bus, I walked down with my brother, and we went inside. So Skolinski knew one day before Brendan was questioned that Blaine never saw a thing.
Yeah.
Right? And so you've got one guy that could have absolutely blown the state's case apart.
Right.
Blaine. And do you think Ken Kratz questioned Blaine about what him and his brother did?
Right.
No. Because he knew if Blaine got up in court and said, hey, look, me and my brother, we didn't see any photographer, we actually went straight home, right? So there's your alibi. Brendan's best alibi was his own brother, right? So you can see that what they were trying to do was to compartmentalize Brendan and Blaine.
Right.
And it's just so shocking. It really is so shocking. So
yeah, I know. Getting back to that compartmentalizing thing is that's funny to me is, Brendan was convicted of aiding in the mutilation of a corpse.
Correct.
But the funny thing to me is, who was he aiding? Because nobody was found guilty of mutilating a corpse.
Correct. That's the amazing thing. When I wrote down the charges that he was actually charged for, there's no physical evidence of rape.
Nope.
But he was charged with rape. Right? None. No physical evidence at all. So when I first read this case, I thought, oh God, there must be a ton of forensic evidence. You know, you've got to look at Stephen Avery's trailer. It's got to be covered in forensic evidence. You've got to look at Stephen Avery's garage. It's got to be covered in forensic evidence. But there was no forensic evidence against Brendan at
Right.
all. None.
Oh, right.
As
Zero.
in no DNA, no blood, no sweat, no hair. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, because one of my passions, as you probably gathered, is DNA, because that's my background. I'm a molecular biologist. I've retired now.
Right.
But I thought, oh, wow, we're going to have a look at some forensic evidence here against Brendan. You know, how the hell is he going to account for this? There was absolutely zero.
None.
And what made matters worse, Ericosi, for me personally, is that the investigators were spoon feeding Brendan all the critical facts about the case, right? And the classic one, as we all know, was Wiegert. He couldn't help himself.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why when
he lost, he grew impatient with trying to get Dassey to guess it on his own and got impatient.
Correct.
Yeah, absolutely.
Correct. Like when you have a former FBI agent just shake his head and you think to yourself, which school did Wiegert and Fassbender go to? It couldn't have been a really good one, right? And so when they interrogated Brendan for, I think he had 6 interrogation sessions altogether. They went for many hours, right? And then eventually on the March 1st interrogation, you know, things got progressively worse and worse and worse. And all of a sudden, Brendan started admitting he had done all these things. But there's one problem, right? It was Wiegert who said to Brendan, who shot her in the head, right? Who shot her in the head? Because they knew, Fassbender and Wiegert knew from the forensic work done by Dr. Eisenberg, I like to call it Dr. Leisenberg, that they found cranial bone fragments allegedly in Stephen Avery's burn pit.
Right.
They never found any human bones in Stephen Avery's burn pit unless they put them there. It's obvious.
Or unless somebody.
And the reason why,
right.
Yeah, the reason why it's obvious is, one, they kicked out the coroner, right?
Yeah.
Imagine the coroner's at home and discovering, there's a murder and it's taken place at the Avery salvage yard, and this is the coroner, right?
Yes.
And the coroner had nothing to do with Stephen Avery's first case, right? So she had every right to be there. So one, coroner's not permitted to come on.
Right.
2, and very damning, where are the in situ photographs?
Yeah.
I'm still waiting
and
for
that ties in with the fact that the coroner, the Manitowoc coroner, was actually going to bring a forensic anthropologist, and that we would have had a proper collection, and we would know what's what in Stephen Avery's burn pit. But we don't.
I mean,
because she was blocked specifically.
Correct. So if you block the coroner, it means that basically you can come up with any shenanigans you want on the salvage yard and no one's going to know. In the end, it's all smoke and mirrors. And I remember having this big discussion with one of our members, Bibi, and we were talking about the bones. And I think she's the most accurate person of the lot. The bones came in a box and left in a box. It was like a pizza delivery, literally. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful because I know a horrendous crime took place. But, oh, my God, if you see any program in which a body has been burnt or they're digging up a body from a gravesite, the coroner comes in and puts a grid. And they don't use heavy equipment, right, like was used at the burn pit to dig out bones. So this was very, very important because there is no forensic evidence. there is no in situ photographs of these so-called bones. But the important thing is this, though, Erikosi. When we get said to Brendan, who shot her in the head, he goes, Stephen. And Fassbender goes, well, what didn't you tell us?
Right.
And of course, Brendan goes, because I couldn't think of it.
Yes.
Now,
that phrasing didn't escape me either. Go ahead.
you, me, and everyone would have gone like this to our notes.
Yeah.
Brendan, here's a voucher for Hungry Jacks. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
now,
you keep in mind he said that. Then he actually had like full on just admitted to, I've been guessing this whole time at one point. I mean, how the combination of these two things didn't work together.
Correct.
But anyway.
Correct. But Steve Moore said it perfectly. He goes, look, this guy obviously didn't know what was going on, but how important was the item FL? Because if you look at the interview, there's no doubt Uyghur is on the phone. He's on the phone. He's talking to somebody who says, do not sign, do not serve. Mm-hmm. So they've obviously got a search warrant going on, and they're trying to add to it, right? Because Uyghur is actually caught. His testimony, he's on the phone. He's talking to somebody.
Right.
So that's where you find item FL, right? The so-called magic bullet. But I think before we go into that, what is incredible here was the story that Brendan was saying, right? He was saying, they were asking him all sorts of questions. What did you do to Teresa Halbach? Where did you put her body? And he initially said that they took Teresa Halbach and they shot her on the side of the garage. On the side of the garage.
Right.
Right? And then Fassbender goes, oh, no.
Actually, wait, didn't he say out by the burn pit too? Or something like that?
Yes. Brendan changed this story several times, right? Yeah. But Fassbender said to him, oh, no. We know that something happened within the garage, and we know that something happened to her vehicle. So Brendan just said, oh, yeah, we shot her in the garage. Well, how many times did you shoot her? 10 or 11. So he was just coming up with random comments all the time. And what the investigators were doing were cobbling a story together. So they asked Brendan about the hair. What did you do to Teresa? Well, we cut her throat.
Right.
And we cut her hair. Because what'd you cut her hair for? I don't know. What did you use to cut her hair? A knife. Mm-hmm. And where did you get the knife? Stephen got it from the kitchen.
Drawer. Right.
Yeah. And where did you put that knife? We put it in the car. Right? So what do? The investigators do. Later on, they tell one of the detectives, hey, look, go to the RAV4 that was in lockup. Check underneath the seat. See if there's a knife. Right. Wait a minute. But Sherry Cohane was meant to have checked the car, right? There were investigators in the RAV4 swabbing, taking photographs. Obviously, they would have checked underneath the seat.
Yeah.
But they were desperate. The investigators were desperate to link something with what Brendan was telling them.
Corroboration, you mean? They were desperate for some corroboration.
Yes, right. So they said, what'd you do with the gun? Oh, we stuck it in the RAV4. We stuck it in the car. No, you didn't. Because they obviously looked in the back of the RAV4, and there was no gun. There was no rifle, right? Yeah. And so you've got Brendan who's saying all these things. Number one, there was no form of corroboration whatsoever. Right. But they got the gold. They got item FL, right? Yeah. So once they got the warrant, the next day they go back in. I think they've already searched the garage 5 times by that stage. And lo and behold, what do they find? 2 bullet fragments. Item FL, item FK. Oh, and it just so magically happened to be item FL, magically happened to be under the compressor, right? And what's funny is that there are photographs that show under the compressor before March the 2nd, and there's no bullets nowhere, right? So suddenly this magic bullet appears underneath the compressor.
That's obvious from the fact that it has none of the dust that the rest of the area has on it.
Correct.
I mean, it's like all shiny and gleaming, and it's like I have to break concrete sometimes in my job or chip it and do that sort of stuff. That dust gets picked up on the wind. It sticks to all kinds of things, and it makes any kind of metal or shiny surface just look dull.
Correct.
And so, that item FL is fishy as hell.
And what's even worse now, it's going to sink the state. Kathleen Zellner has got an ace card. Item FL is going to kill the state because, you see, they never thought that Kathleen Zellner was going to get a microtrace analysis to look at the bullet under a high-powered microscope and scanning electron microscope. Oh, boy, we know that bullet went through Pinocchio. It didn't go through Teresa Hallbuck. It went through something made of wood. And her team and her analysis was first rate. But getting back to Brendan. So Brendan was giving this horrific story of what they allegedly did to Teresa Hallbuck, right? And then Ken Kratz, the day after, without checking, without any form of collaboration, not to double check the facts, he did the press conference, right, on March the 2nd. And he basically spewed out the entire scenario of what had actually happened to poor Teresa Hallbuck. And it was horrific, absolutely horrific.
Yeah.
And so during his interrogation, Fassbender and Wiegert asked Brendan to draw. Remember the drawings that he made him do? He made him draw how Teresa was shackled in the bed. He drew the knife. He drew where the hair was. And he also drew the fire pit, right? And what's incredible is that, and you know it, and I know it, he drew a whole body, right? And so they asked him, they said, well, after you shot Teresa Hallbuck, what did you actually do? Well, we got her and we put her in the back of her RAV4. No, that can't be right. Oh, yeah, that's right. We took her out of the RAV4 and we put it in the fire. How'd you do that? Well, I held the feet and my uncle held the arms. And of course, guys, we know that the victim, and if the victim is indeed Teresa Hallbuck, she was cut to pieces, right? And Brendan never mentions that, they basically dismembered Teresa Hallbuck and she was cremated. Make no mistake. The victim was completely cremated to bones, to bone fragments. And it was horrendous. Yeah. So I think this goes to show the danger when apparently 2 intelligent adults are interrogating a young boy with a limited intellectual ability, no mother present, no attorney present. Fassbender and Wiegert went to town. And I must admit, I was so distraught, ashamed. Honestly, I don't know how it was permissible. But to me, the greatest shame was the fact that when Knight Rider and Drizzen took over the case, they thought, hey, you beauty, we're going to win this hands down. And to think that some of the judges thought, oh, yeah, he wasn't coerced, that's fully admissible. And yet other judges said, that's the biggest lot of crap I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
So
I
Eric
love
Cozy.
the dissenting judges, like the way Judge Wood did it. He made diagrams for like 4 pages, just going, "This is what he said. This is where he would have been able to hear it. This is was also suggested in by the investigators." If it's like,
Correct.
It out where all this supposedly incriminating information that he gave,
correct,
where it came from, like it's just laying it right out there, and it's just like, oh man, I love it.
Yep.
I love it.
And not only that, Judge Duffin, basically said, "This is the biggest lot of crap I've ever seen in my life." He did a scathing review of the whole process.
91 page? Anyway.
91 pages, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, now, how come Judge Duffin can see the shenanigans and yet the other guys, that it got overturned, I think it was 4-3? Yes. How can 4 people possibly overturn that? And to me,
it's called AEDPA.
That's it. To me, the scary thing is you can go to prison for life based on an opinion.
Yeah.
A person's opinion. And it's not like 100% agreement, right? It's sort of like some people were looking at it in shock and horror saying, this is garbage. And others are going, no, I don't see a problem. And that to me was the biggest issue. But I do want to say one thing though. I give kudos to Brendan for actually standing up in court. And speaking out.
When he
God.
Brilliantly. He testified brilliantly. Considering his limitations and how easily that could have gone off the rails, he did a very, very good job. Absolutely.
The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, you imagine if you were questioned by Fallon, right? The guy is straight out of Star Wars. He is so scary and intimidating, and yet Brendan never batted an eyelid.
Are you saying, wait, hold on. Did you just compare Fallon to the Emperor?
Oh, yeah. He's scared. He's scared. I'm telling you now, you don't believe me, I reckon he was on Star Wars.
Oh, I love it. It's very apt.
Although to be fair, to be fair, that was Big Jeff. Big Jeff did that comparison. And if you put them side by side, Fallon is actually more scarier. I'm telling you now, he is more scarier.
You guys go as far as photoshopping a hood around.
Oh, you can't. You don't have to Photoshop. You don't have to.
You guys gotta send that over after we're done here.
I'm telling you, you don't have to Photoshop. And yet, this young man, looked Fallon straight in the eye and said, I didn't do any of this. I lied. And, all jokes aside, at the end of that March 1st interview, when Fassbender and Uyghur leave the room, he grasps his head.
Right.
And he said to his mum, they got to my head.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you what, if you were interrogated by those 2 bozos for 3 hours, you would admit to anything. You would admit to killing Santa Claus, right? and so, when you look at the aspects of the Reed technique, and I've seen so many cases now, the Central Park 5, classic. Yeah. If you look at the Central Park 5, they did a documentary on Netflix. It is the Reed technique on 5 African-American youths who had nothing to do with the crime. Nothing. In the end, they admitted to raping, torturing. They did the whole lot.
Right.
And they ended up all in prison, right? And they interviewed the guys when they finally got exonerated. They said, what happened? He goes, we only wanted to get out of there. Because the Reed technique puts you in a spot where you want to go. You want to go the exit door. So you just go, look. Yeah, I did it. Please let me out of here. And so they entrapped Brendan. They got him exactly where they wanted to. They got the search warrant. They found Ida Mafel. but Ida Mafel turned out to actually bite the state really badly. And now we know why the state does not want to encounter Kathleen Zellner. The state gave away the bones, as you talked about before. We now know why. That's pretty obvious. Brendan never mentioned about putting bones in his own burn barrel, right? Yonder burn barrel number 2 has got human cut cremains in there. And Brendan never said, oh yeah, by the way, me and my uncle, we went all the way down to the Manitowoc County gravel pit and we decided to sprinkle a couple of bones. Right. We decided to sprinkle a couple of bones over there. Now you know why. Ken Kratz, 1, didn't want to touch the Manitowoc County gravel pit. We all know why. 2, he told Dr. Eisenberg, shut up. That's what he would have said to her. Don't you dare say that's a human bone. So she said, no, that's not a human bone. So getting back to Brendan, everything he said could not be corroborated. But there's one thing, Eric Cozy, if I've got time to talk about it. Have I got some time?
Yeah.
One thing that
we've got 13 minutes. So
13, beautiful. One thing that blew my mind.
Johnny will be joining us here in a second also. Go ahead. Sorry.
Super. One thing that blew my mind was Fallon was stirring him up in court. He called him sir, remember? Sir, sir. Where did you hear about a woman being tied to a bed, raped, stabbed, burned? And Brendan Dassey, without flinching, goes, I got it from a book. Kiss the girls. I'm there. Well, wait a minute. Kiss the girls? What the hell is this all about? And one thing, Eric Cozy, the people representing, the attorneys representing Stephen, Brendan never thought, hey, wait a minute, maybe I better check to see if there's some veracity in what Brendan was acting. Because do you consider Brendan reading a book like Kiss the Girls? Right? It's a very heavy-going book. Yet, he somehow plucked it out of the air. Lo and behold, what another researcher and I, her name's Bron, and she's going to appear on MaM-a-Thon soon. What Bron and I decided to do, just as a...
It's going to be on Millbilly segment, so I talked about that earlier. So.
Yeah, just as a bit of fun, we thought, okay, let's go and check out this film. Let's go and read the book. Let's just see if Brendan just made it all up. Our jaws hit the floor. All the major things that Brendan told Fassbender and Wiegert is straight from Kiss the Girls. All the major plot, all of them, the female tied to the bed, restrained to the bed, a knife being held to the throat, sexual assault, but the one that gave it away was the cutting of the hair.
Right.
And it was only shown in the film, not the book. So, and guess what? Kiss the Girls was being shown in Wisconsin during that time.
Oh, wow.
And Brendan was placed in a hotel suite at Fox Hills. And they've got Fox, and it's likely, imagine this, Fassbender, Wiegert, Barb, and Brendan watching Kiss the Girls. And so Brendan, he was told in one of the interrogations, play back the video in your mind. That's exactly what Brendan did. Brendan actually gave all the major plot lines to Kiss the Girls, right? And guess what? Ken Kratz, in a major conference, he gave the major plot lines to a film. And it's like, hello?
Yeah.
Everything that Brendan said, you can map it step by step to the film Kiss the Girls. And, that's what happens. And I've read Ken Kratz's book, and he said, Eric Cozy goes, the only thing I regret, well, actually 2, his sexting scandals. And the other thing he regrets was doing the March 2nd press conference. He regrets doing that. But apart from that, no problems at all.
Yeah.
And he actually says in his book that he felt very sorry for Brendan, and that what Brendan should have done was accept with his attorney was accept a plea bargain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, we now know the story because we've seen the 2010 post-conviction depositions. Oh my God.
Right.
His attorney, Kaczynski, his investigator, Michael O'Kelly,
Right.
they were talking openly with the investigators. This is the state investigators
Right.
and Ken Kratz. So
Oh.
they came in with a plan. Your client is guilty. Get him to take a plea bargain, and we'll go for leniency. We'll go. I think it was 15 or 20 years, which is ironical because Brendan would have been due for release very soon. So imagine you get an attorney who already A, thinks you're guilty, and B, is talking to the state prosecutor and investigators. And Michael O'Kelly, you saw what happened, right? Michael O'Kelly went up to Brendan and said, right, fill out this questionnaire. Tell me what happened. And Brendan said the same boring story. He goes, I got off the bus with my brother. We walked down the road. I went home. He did this. I did that.
Right.
And Michael O'Kelly goes, Brendan, I can't help you. But that's the truth. I can't help you because there's one person missing here, Teresa Hallbach.
Never mind the fact that you passed the polygraph test with flying colors.
Which he lied.
Which you've
He
been
lied
telling
to him. He
everybody
said-
that you failed.
Correct. He told him that he failed. And that's the other thing, guys, we know. Uyghur and Fassbender were permitted to lie to Brendan. They were permitted to set him up. And they kept on saying, we know the truth. We just want you to tell us the truth. We know what happened.
Right.
So Brendan obviously thought, oh, God, they obviously know what's happened. So, you know, I might as well tell them what I can. But what was dishonest was the fact that they said to him, look, your uncle is going to blame you for everything.
Right. Right.
Right? So he's going, what? My own uncle's going to blame me for this. So as a consequence, he was able to, he spewed out all this sort of nonsense. And of course, we know what happened. So in a way, the tragedy with Brendan is that he's facing life in prison only based on words.
Right.
There is no forensic evidence. And before I finish, the important thing is this, right? You could tell that the planting is so obvious. Why? Because the planters never planted any forensic evidence against Brendan.
Can you hear me?
Right.
None.
Right.
Right? There was all aimed at Stephen.
Right.
So you think about this. If the rape and murder took place, you have two people, Brendan and Stephen with Teresa Hallbach together. So they are together in the bedroom, they are together in the garage, and they are together in the RAV4. Where is the forensic evidence of Brendan?
Yes, I agree.
Nowhere. Nowhere.
Right, absolutely. And on that point, I mean, that's a good place to end it right there, obviously, because you're right. They didn't think to plant the evidence of Brendan because he was a complete afterthought.
Correct.
Yeah.
And just one final point, Eric Cozy, if I may. And this, to me, this was the tragedy. They asked Brendan, they said, all right, how did you bring that RAV4 to the pit? And Brendan goes, well, me and my uncle, we drove it, right? We drove it. We drove it past my mum's house. We drove it past Dolores's home. We drove it past Chucky, and we brought it down to the pit, right? Lo and behold, what do the dog tracks show? The dog tracks show the complete opposite direction to where they drove the RAV4, right? So none of the dog tracks track the pathway that Brendan and apparently his uncle drove the RAV4. All the dogs went the opposite direction.
Right.
And just to make it final, what did Fassbender tell Stephen Avery? We know where the RAV came from. It came from the quarry. What did Fassbender tell Redont? We know that this RAV4 came past your property, past the deer camp. So therefore, they knew before Brendan testified where the RAV4 came from, because they had all the dog tracks. Along comes Brendan and says, oh, no, we drove the RAV4 this way. No support. So please, why? If the investigators knew that everything that Brendan said, including driving the RAV4, was complete bogus, what's that kid doing in prison still?
Right.
He knows.
Absolutely.
He does not know anything.
Yep, I agree. Hello there, Johnny. How you doing, buddy? We're getting ready to hand this thing off.
I'm doing all right. Mr. Silkman, nice to meet you.
Oh, thank you.
I've not met you. It's nice to meet you.
Hey, Ripper. But yeah, so that's Brendan Dassey, and very, very sad.
Right, absolutely. So it was a great talk with you today, Dr. Silkman. I'm so glad you could come by.
Oh, pleasure.
And obviously, we're getting ready to hand over to Mr. Ripper here, folks.
Am I allowed to say? Am I allowed to do a plug for Foul Play?
Oh yeah.
My team, my wonderful team, got me the MaM-a-Thon shirt. Fantastic, honestly, a fantastic bunch of researchers on multiple channels, all working for the same cause.
I didn't get to see it.
And guys, if you can, please check out our website, foulplay.site/. A lot of really good information. And Ericosi, I want to thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For allowing me to come on your MaM-a-Thon. Awesome, bro.
Oh, you're welcome,
Awesome.
buddy. Stand up a little bit for us so everybody can see your shirt and they can see the MaM-a-Thon logo a little bit there. Yeah, there you go. So there you go, folks.
That's very nice.
Beautiful.
Now, where can we order those
Thank
shirts
you.
so we can get them autographed?
So I'll say goodbye.
All right, and we'll see you, Dr. Silkman. They'll be posting links. The mods will be posting links to the Zazzle store, Johnny. Here,
Okay.
and then once yours starts, I'm sure Julia will post the Zazzle store for you as well. So,
All right.
all righty, folks, head on over to
Thank you,
Daddy's
guys.
channel. And
Take
thank
care.
you, Dr. Silkman. It was a pleasure.
Pleasure.
You know, everybody go check out
Cheers.
Foul Play. That's where you can find Dr. Silkman, Big Jeff.
Cheers.
You know, we got, and I want that meme. I want the Fallon with the Emperor's hood on and everything. So don't forget. Okay, folks. So that was my chat with Dr. Silkman. I mean, thoroughly enjoyable. It was absolute pleasure to speak with Dr. Silkman. The points he makes about Brendan are brilliant. That's why it was one of the reasons why I wanted him on my first segment, because I knew I wanted to power pack it with advocates for Brendan, and I knew Dr. Silkman was a very, very good one to choose. So, and he's brilliant. And I only have to judge by the fact that Michelle Moore, who was watching my first segment, was very impressed with Dr. Silkman. So she is now, went over and checked out Foul Play. So, I mean, look, folks, it was a brilliant interview. Love talking to Dr. Silkman. You guys all know who he is. You know how what a good, good, solid, supporter he is, knowledgeable. He just brings a lot to the table. So it was an absolute pleasure to be speaking with him during MaM-a-Thon, and I hope you guys all enjoyed it. You guys, I'll leave some links for Foul Play below for those of you who don't know where to find Foul Play or anything, or by some coincidence that you just haven't heard of Foul Play before and you don't know what it is. I'll leave some links below for you so that you can go and give it a look. I'll even see if I can get a link to their Discord server for those of you that want to jump over and check out their Discord server. So, all right, folks, that's about it for this highlights for MaM-a-Thon. My chat with Dr. Silkman, with obviously a little bit of Sydney and her cute daughter Rose at the beginning there, which was awesome. But anyway, but it was a great MaM-a-Thon, great chat with Dr. Silkman. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. And if you haven't already, please hit subscribe. And we'll see ya.